Hello, hello, my luxurious conjurers. I know you all are doing well. So today I want to bring a little story time of a spell that actually did not work, a spell that did not come to fruition for me. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this is because one thing that I think is really important for especially the new practitioners to know and understand is that magic is not this sure proof, like, it's a 100% guaranteed. You guys, we still live on planet Earth and we have to abide by universal law. Nothing is 100% guaranteed, okay? Absolutely nothing. Not organized religion, not spell work, not atheism, like nothing. So I think it's important for you guys to get, the real, and the real includes spells that work, things that come to fruition, fast luck, all the things, right? Money just coming from multiple sources. But the real also looks like magic not working. It also looks like things just not panning out or things being more challenging than what they appear to be at face value. It looks like sometimes being humbled by spirit is what I personally call it, and just being given those reminders of you do still operate in this human body. So this particular story time, it did take place a while ago. As a side note, you guys, I'm never going to tell you guys a story where like the spells are actively happening. And that's a pro tip. Make sure that you're not talking to people about active spell work. If you are in the middle of doing spells, a ritual, anything like that, you really want to practice discretion. You don't want to, essentially insert other energy, other spirits into your spell work while it's actively happening. So just something to keep in mind. But anyway, so this took place a while ago, pretty long while ago. And there was this place that basically we leased. We leased a home. We were trying to figure out where we wanted to purchase and, we were getting ready to move. So we had just decided that we would lease a home for about a year until we kind of got clear about where we wanted to move. We knew that there were just some things that we had to take care of first. And, so we were like, we were going to rent. So we find a place. On paper, it looks great. It's spacious. It's in a beautiful neighborhood. It has all the things. There's amenities. It really does give this beautiful illusion that like, this is a place that we can be comfortable. I am someone where it's like, I'm just not going to jeopardize my comfort if I don't have to. And so that was something that was super important for me, is to make sure that I had all the space I need. My family was good, the works, right? So on paper, that's exactly what this place looked like. We move in, and within like probably 2 months, everything just turned awry. It became a total shit show. Like the landlord did not want to fix things that needed to be fixed, lied about things that were, basically already messed up. Now he's trying to act like, no, I told you about that beforehand, when we're like, no, you didn't tell us about it. The neighbors became problematic, and our units, like our homes did not even connect or anything. But there was a fence. And they were just like super problematic. They were like throwing trash. It was weird things that were just happening. So this was just not as nice of a neighborhood and a community that it was. It was just not up to standard at all. So I had made the decision where I was like, I am absolutely not going to stay here. I don't care what needs to happen. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care what type of lease we're breaking. Like, I'm not living here for a whole year, right? That was pretty much my thought process. So I start looking for other places, and I'm like, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be a home. It can be, a condo or an apartment for all I care, a townhome. Like, it just can't be here, right? So I start looking, and over, a period of time, over a few weeks probably, I find this beautiful, brand new built apartment complex. And it's like super big apartments, and, it's like really giving all the luxury that I love, right? And I'm like, yes, we can stay there. So let's stay there, and then let's really buckle down and let's kind of figure out, what we are going to do. Well, the interesting thing about this apartment is there was no availability. So my goal, my desire was to basically have moved within like a 2 month period. I think I had given myself like 60 days. And when I inquired, they were basically like, no, there won't be any availability around that time frame, so you'll just have to basically like kind of check. And then after a few days, I called back and I asked another person, because the first person I talked to, they seemed unsure. So that's actually what made me, like, I promise I wasn't a Karen. Like, they just made me feel very unsure as to if they knew. So I was like, let me wait a couple of days. Let me call back, or, I'll even see if I can go up there and talk to someone that might have a little more knowledge. So I speak to a leasing manager, and they say, well, actually, the person was incorrect. We will have some availability. It's going to be limited availability because we're doing it in phases, and it really won't be until closer to like the end of the month that you are looking to move in. So if you're flexible with your date, then we can probably accommodate you. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So I talked to the mister, and mister's like, yes, like, let's go ahead and let's shoot for that. Fine. So being the person that I am, being the magician that I am, I get to work, and I'm like, okay, 60 days, I'm going to do this spell work. I'm going to do this spell work. I'm going to, set my routine. I have my herbs. I know what type of candle, what color, the whole, thing. So I create this spell work. I invoke the deity that I want to work with. I did all of this. Let me be so transparent. I did all of this before looking at any sort of divination, right? I did not do any kind of divining before I did this work. But I started performing it. And what essentially happened was, it started out with being something that, I was doing on Moon Day because of the deity that I was invoking. And then, I also started doing it on Thursday for that favor, for a benevolent outcome. That's Jupiter energy. And then before I knew it, I am doing it like nearly every day. And so it really became sporadic and very just kind of all over the place. And that was because I started getting very anxious. I started getting very frustrated with my living situation. And I started implementing new herbs to try to speed up the process. I know I just recently gave you guys some information around fast magic. Fast magic does work. Let me be so clear. It does work. But you have to look at everything. You can't just focus on the herbs that you're using. You have to look at everything. You have to look at your energy. You have to look at, your timeline. You have to be, this is where practicality does matter, because you have to take into account of how are you going to make this thing happen fast? What doors are opening? What vehicle do you have that's going to ensure that this works fast for you? So it isn't just, let me use black pepper, cayenne, chili pepper, and ginger, mix it all together, and boom, it's going to happen. If that were the case, we would have a lot of like overnight millionaires, overnight sensations. You would have lottery winners out the galore. You know what I mean? So there's more to it. And what was happening for me at that time, I just really I sat in desperation. I started getting desperate. I started getting antsy. And you guys, I spent so much time focusing on this one thing, focusing on this one, complex, this, one spell, and adding random things and doing it on random days. Like, there was no consistency. The only thing that was consistent was my desperate energy, was the fact that I was willing to do the work, But outside of that, there was no consistency in the type of magic that I was performing. As I had mentioned, I didn't do any divination around it. So I didn't even confirm, like, is this necessary? Do I need to do this? What type of spell work would better, align with this? So very long story short, I got to that 60th day where I'm thinking, like, we're moving. We are going to move. That's what I was thinking. We're going to get this thing. And you guys, up to the point, I remember, like, it was just a few days prior to the day, I was sitting there saying to myself, and I remember even saying it over my candle, like, there's going to be this miraculous outcome. There's going to be this thing that just turns it around, and they're going to reach out, and I'm going to be able to apply for this. And, like, you know what I mean? Everything's going to be great. We're going to get in, all of that, right? Obviously, it didn't happen. And we ended up having to stay the duration of the lease, you know what I mean? Basically that of the place that we were at. And during that period of time, you guys, so many beautiful things happened. Even though, yes, I still dealt with the problematic neighbors. I still dealt with, a landlord who was very inconsistent. And, we literally went like months, you guys, with our AC unit not working because like the landlord just didn't want to fix it. It was so much going on that was wrong with this really beautiful home. And, what I realized though, when I would go to my divination and when I would sit in my meditation, what I realized was that there were a lot of things that I was doing wrong when it came down to that spell work. And that really was why it didn't work. I was supposed to be, and we don't live there anymore. But I was supposed to be in that home at that space and time for specific purposes, because I was in a position during that time because it was significantly cheaper than where like we are now. And even some of the other places that we've lived, our expenses were so ridiculously low there, which that probably should have been one of our kind of red flags as to like, why is this beautiful home? Why does it cost so little? But, that was one of the things that I learned in hindsight was, the way that I was able to really pour into my businesses, the way that I was able to invest more money, the way that I was able to, focus on things that was like pertaining to my child and some of the things that, my child needed to excel and to really have, just fun experiences. I was able to do these things. The home was smaller than the previous home we had. So there's less maintenance that was involved in terms of like upkeep and things like that. So, that certainly helped because I then had more time. I had more time to just sit and lounge and, read my books and get more into my spiritual practice. So what it taught me was, number one, desperation energy never works. It doesn't work. Desperate magic, in my opinion, is not something that you really ever want to do. That's going to open up the doors for the negative, low vibrational entities to come. That is what's going to open up the doors of you accepting less than really what you had to. There's just so much wrong with it, And very rarely, at least in my experience, does it actually give you, the outcome that you desired in the first place. So it taught me that, I should never perform magic blindly, and I should never perform magic through desperation, through eager, anxious energy. And it also helped me too to kind of really take a look more at my environment and the circumstances around what I want to change and make sure that I'm looking at everything objectively and I don't operate from such a knee-jerk perspective, which is just a personal thing that I tend to do. If I'm being honest, I do tend to do things quite impulsively and quite knee-jerk. And magic really does help to ground you. Magic really does help to, define more order and structure in your life, especially when you are doing, like ritual work. It really can help you there. So it taught me that, yes, you can get what you want, and there might be a delay in what it is that you want. But, number one, we don't fold just because we don't get what we want immediately. Like, we're not toddlers. You know what I mean? We don't throw tantrums just because, I couldn't move within the 60 days that I desired to move. Yeah, it took some time. It took another like 7 months. And then, I was able to move. So I still moved. I still got what I wanted, just not at the time frame that I wanted. And I had to learn to be okay with that. That was a reminder for me that it's okay that that doesn't happen. It's okay that things don't happen exactly when you want it to. It also taught me too to be a lot more precise around my work because, as I mentioned, I was doing a little bit of everything, you guys, to make this thing happen. I'm doing all types of spells on all different type of days and adding herbs and just, what I'm thinking, anything I can do to make it hurry up and come fast. I remember at one point, you guys, I had even called on Saint Expedite because I was in a state of desperation. And granted, Saint Expedite actually does assist you when you are in these like kind of dire emergency situations. But if I'm really being transparent, it wasn't a dire emergency. It was truly a strong discomfort. And I wanted to shift that. I just wanted to make that change. So sometimes a spell doesn't work. And I think it's important, if you feel like, especially if there's a timeline that you put on your spell, if you feel like, okay, that didn't work, don't give up. Number one, go back and look at everything that you did. Go back and look at your energy, number one, what you actually did, what you are actually performing spell work for. Look at everything. I think it's important to realize that sometimes you just have to wait. And I know that that is something, especially in our microwave society, that's just something we don't like to hear. But sometimes you just have to wait. You just have to wait it out. Sometimes you are performing spell work for something that isn't going to show up until months from now, possibly years from now. But it doesn't mean that that energy is not still out there. It is. It is. So I just wanted to share this little story time with you. And I hope that it's encouraging to someone to, number one, not give up just because something isn't working, and utilize the spells that don't work. Utilize that as like a way for you to study more, for you to learn and educate yourself on, number one, magic, because there's so much to learn, when it comes down to magical practices, and different forms of spells. But, utilize that as an opportunity to learn, to get more engulfed in what you're supposed to do and why you're doing what you're doing. And then try again, try it in a different way, try it at a different time. Sometimes those are just the tweaks that you need to make in order for it to happen. If it's something specific that you keep performing spell work around and it's still not working out, I would strongly encourage that you go to your spirit team and you get confirmation on if you should be spell casting for that thing in the first place. Because honestly, although I'm obviously no Christian, I, love the saying where I will hear people make the little note of like, rejection is God's protection or something like that. I do believe that. I do believe that from a spiritual perspective, if in the spirit realm that is not something that you're aligned with, you will get the rejection. And it's essentially protecting you from something that you cannot see in your physical body. So I hope that that was helpful. Please feel free to drop it in the comments. Is there a spell that you have tried to perform over and over and you felt like it just wasn't working? Did you take a look at it? Did you see what you were doing wrong, where you could have improved? Did it come later? I would love to hear, all the things in the comments. Until next time.